Solitary Lumberjack thought he'd bought a goblin slave until he took off her sack, and Alex Hudson hated alien markets. The cacophony of untranslatable languages, the stench of unfamiliar foods, and the press of bodies that had no business having that many limbs. It all made his skin crawl. But when your laser axe breaks down in the middle of nowhere on a frontier planet, you don't get many options. He adjusted his worn leather gloves and rolled his broad shoulders, feeling the fabric of his dark gray work jacket stretch across his back. The heavy boots he wore left imprints in the dusty ground as he navigated through the crowded marketplace on Outpost Helios, a trading hub that catered to the desperate and the dangerous. "Timber cutter," a voice called out in broken standard. "Strong human needs strong tools, yes?" Alex turned to see a short, green-skinned alien with unnervingly smooth skin and narrow eyes that seemed to calculate profit margins with every blink. The merchant wore a gray jumpsuit beneath a tattered cloak that had seen better centuries. "Name's Krex," the alien said, motioning Alex closer to his stall. "Have what human needs. Best quality. Fair price." Alex approached cautiously. "I need a new laser axe. Industrial grade. My old one's power cell is dead." Krex's thin lips stretched into what might have been a smile on a human face. "Better than laser axe, much better deal for strong human." The merchant gestured to a figure huddled in the corner of his stall. It was roughly humanoid, covered in a dirty sack from head to mid-torso, with bound hands and wearing what looked like rags. It trembled slightly. "What the hell is that?" Alex demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "Goblin slave," Krex said dismissively. "Very rare, very valuable, good worker, no complaint." Alex felt his stomach turn. "I don't want a damn slave, I want tools. Tools break." "Slave work many years," Krex insisted. "This one's special. Worth much timber." Alex was about to walk away when he noticed the bound figure flinch as Krex moved closer. Something in that small, frightened movement struck him. He'd come to this frontier planet to escape civilization, not his humanity. "How much?" he asked, hating himself for the question. 3 months harvest," Krex said immediately. 1 month, and you throw in a basic laser axe, Alex countered. After 15 minutes of haggling that left Alex feeling like he needed a shower, he found himself leading the sack-covered figure back to his ground transport, a rugged all-terrain vehicle designed for hauling timber. The ride back to his cabin was silent except for the occasional whimper from his passenger. Alex kept glancing over, wondering what the hell he'd just done. He wasn't a slaver. He'd fought against that sort of thing in the colonial wars. But leaving any sentient being with Krex had seemed worse somehow. His cabin appeared through the trees, a solid structure of actual wood, built by his own hands after he'd claimed this patch of wilderness 3 years ago. Solar panels glinted on the roof and smoke curled from the chimney where his autocook would be preparing dinner. Alex helped the bound figure from the vehicle and guided it gently inside. In the warm light of his home, he could see that whatever was under that sack was trembling violently. "I'm going to take this off," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." With careful movements, Alex untied the crude rope around the figure's neck and then slowly lifted the sack. His breath caught in his throat. Before him stood not the monstrous goblin he'd been led to expect, but a humanoid woman with soft, pale green skin that seemed to glow in the cabin's light. Large almond-shaped eyes of deep amber regarded him with terror. Her delicate features were framed by what looked like fine, silvery hair that caught the light like filaments of precious metal. Her hands, bound with thick rope, had long, elegant fingers that trembled as she tried to adjust the tattered gray garment that hung from her slender frame. Around her neck was a thin metallic collar with blinking lights. "Holy shit," Alex whispered. The alien woman flinched at his words, her eyes darting around the cabin as if searching for escape. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." She stared at him, uncomprehending or disbelieving. He couldn't tell which. Alex slowly reached for his utility knife. "I'm going to cut those ropes, okay?" As he moved toward her bound wrists, she backed away until she hit the wall, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "It's okay," he said, trying to keep his voice gentle despite his growing anger at whoever had done this to her. "I just want to help." He moved more slowly this time, telegraphing his movements until she finally extended her bound hands. With careful precision, he cut through the ropes. The alien woman rubbed her wrists, watching him with those large, frightened eyes. "My name is Alec," he said, tapping his chest. "Alex Hudson." She remained silent, but her gaze was intelligent, assessing. "Do you understand me?" he asked. After a long moment, she gave a small nod. "Do you have a name?" Her voice, when it finally came, was like wind through crystal chimes, musical and strange. "Elasa," she said softly. "I am called Elasa." The morning light filtered through the cabin windows, casting golden patterns across the wooden floor. Alex had spent an uncomfortable night on his couch, giving Elasa his bed. Now he stood in the kitchen area, preparing a simple breakfast and stealing glances at his unexpected guest. Elasa sat perched on the edge of a chair, her posture perfect but tense. She'd wrapped herself in the clean blanket he'd offered her last night after showing her how to use the sonic shower. The tattered gray garment she'd arrived in lay, discarded in the recycler. "Are you hungry?" Alex asked, setting a plate of scrambled eggs and toast on the table. Elasa eyed the food warily. "This is safe for my kind?" Her voice still startled him, melodic and accented, but perfectly understandable. The universal translators embedded in most humans during childhood made basic communication possible, but her grasp of standard went beyond mere translation. "I'm not sure," Alex admitted. "What do your people eat?" "We are omnivores like humans," she said, cautiously picking up a fork. "But some compounds are problematic." "Try a small bite," he suggested. "If it doesn't feel right, we'll find something else." She took a tiny portion of egg, her delicate green fingers trembling slightly. After a careful taste, her amber eyes widened with surprise. "This is pleasant," she said, taking another bite with more enthusiasm. Alex smiled, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. "Good. You need your strength." They ate in silence for a few minutes before Alex worked up the courage to ask the question that had kept him awake most of the night. "Elasa, who are you? How did you end up with that merchant?" She set down her fork, her gaze dropping to the table. "It is a long story. We've got time," Alex said gently. Elasa touched the collar at her neck, her fingers tracing the blinking lights. "I am Elasa Vishari, daughter of Ambassador Talon, Vishari of the Lumidari Conclave." Alex nearly choked on his coffee. "You're a diplomat's daughter?" She nodded, a sad smile touching her lips. "My father represents our people in the Galactic Assembly. We were traveling to the Centauri conference when our ship was attacked by raiders. Her voice faltered. "They took me." "Why?" Alex asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew. "My people possess certain abilities," she said hesitantly. "We can sense emotions, sometimes thoughts. Some can influence them." "Telepathy," Alex said. "A crude term, but yes, it makes us valuable to those with unsavory intentions." Alex's jaw tightened. "How long have you been a captive?" 3 standard months, she replied, her voice steady despite the pain evident in her eyes. "I was sold twice before the Green One acquired me." "Crex," Alex supplied. "Yes, he was frightened of me, and kept me drugged, covered, said I was cursed." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Superstitious fool. He simply feared what he could not understand." Alex reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "I'm going to help you, Elasa. We'll get that collar off and find a way to contact your people." She looked at his outstretched hand, then slowly placed her palm against his. The contact sent a strange, pleasant tingle up his arm. "Why would you help me?" she asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "You do not know me." "Because it's the right thing to do," Alex said simply. "And because no one deserves to be treated like property." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, perhaps even wonder. "Humans are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" he asked, suddenly aware that he hadn't withdrawn his hand from hers. "Our cultural briefings describe humans as aggressive, territorial, dangerous." Her thumb moved slightly against his palm. They did not mention kindness. Alex felt his face warm. We're complicated. Yes, she agreed, her amber eyes studying him with new interest. I am beginning to see that. Over the next few days, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Alex showed Elasa around his cabin in the surrounding forest, teaching her about earth plants he transplanted to this frontier world. She proved to be a quick learner, fascinated by the physical labor that defined his life. Your people do not use automation for this? She asked, watching him split logs with his backup manual axe. Alex wiped sweat from his brow, acutely aware of her gaze on his bare chest. The day was warm, and he'd shed his shirt hours ago. We could, he admitted, but there's something satisfying about doing it by hand. May I try? She asked, surprising him. He hesitated, then handed her the axe. It's heavy. Elisa took it, adjusting her grip as she'd seen him do. Her attempt at splitting the log was clumsy but earnest, and Alex found himself moving behind her, his hands covering hers to guide the motion. Like this, he murmured, suddenly very conscious of how close they were standing, of the subtle floral scent that seemed to emanate from her skin. She turned her head slightly, their faces inches apart. Like this, she whispered. The axe was forgotten as their eyes locked. Something electric passed between them, a recognition, a possibility. That night, as they sat before the fireplace, Elisa finally asked the question that had been building between them. In your culture, she said carefully, what constitutes a mating ritual? Alex nearly spilled his drink. What? I sense your attraction, she said matter-of-factly. It resonates with my own. I simply wish to understand the proper protocol. He set down his glass, heart hammering. Elisa, you've been through a trauma. I don't want to take advantage. Alex, she interrupted, moving closer on the couch. In my culture, emotional and physical connection is considered healing, a celebration of life after darkness. Her hand found his. I choose this. I choose you. The firelight played across her features, turning her pale green skin to gold. Alex reached out, hesitantly tracing the curve of her cheek with his fingertips. I don't even know if we're compatible, he said, his voice rough. A smile curved her lips. There is only one way to discover that truth. And as her lips met his, Alex knew his solitary life as a lumberjack had irrevocably changed, and he couldn't bring himself to regret it for a moment. Dawn broke over the forest, bathing Alex's cabin in soft golden light. He woke to find Elisa sitting cross-legged on the floor beside his bed, her eyes closed in meditation. The events of the previous night, their first kiss by the firelight, replayed in his mind, sending a pleasant warmth through his body. Good morning, he said softly. Elisa's eyes opened, those amber orbs focusing on him with an intensity that made his breath catch. Your dreams are vibrant, she said with a small smile. I could feel them even through my meditation. Alex sat up, suddenly self-conscious. You can sense my dreams? Not their content, she assured him, rising gracefully to sit beside him on the bed. Only their texture. Emotions leave impressions in the air like ripples on water. He ran a hand through his tousled hair. That's going to take some getting used to. I can teach you to shield your thoughts, Elisa offered, her fingers lightly touching his forearm. It is a basic courtesy among my people. Your people, Alex repeated. Tell me more about the Lumidari. Elisa's expression softened. We are an old race. While humans were building your first cities, we had already reached the stars. There was no condescension in her voice, only a statement of fact. Our abilities developed as our technology advanced, perhaps because we needed connection more as our world expanded. And these abilities, they're why you were taken. A shadow crossed her face. Yes, but not in the way you might think. She touched the collar at her neck. I am unusual among my kind. Most Lumidari can sense emotions within a short range, perhaps influence them slightly. I can do more. How much more? Alex asked. I can reach deeper, see memories, sometimes even redirect thoughts. She looked away. It is why I was chosen for diplomatic training. Why I accompanied my father. Alex whistled low. No wonder someone wanted to get their hands on you. It was not random, Ilasa continued, confirming what Alex had suspected. My father was negotiating an alliance between the Lumidary Conclave and the Human Expansion Coalition against the Dravari Imperium. The Dravari? Alex felt a chill. Everyone on the frontier knew about the Dravari, a militaristic species that had been encroaching on human-settled systems for decades. You think they took you to sabotage the negotiations? I believe so. The raiders who attacked our ship wore no insignia, but their tactics, she shuddered. They knew exactly where to find me. Alex reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. We need to contact your father. Let him know you're alive. The collar prevents it, she said, tapping the metal band. It dampens my abilities and blocks standard communication frequencies. And if tampered with incorrectly, she didn't need to finish the thought. There's a settlement about 50 kilometers from here, Alex said. They might have someone who can help. Ilasa nodded, then hesitated. Before we attempt that, there is something I wish to share with you. Her voice had taken on a new quality, softer, more intimate, a connection that might help protect you if we encounter those who took me. What kind of connection? Among my people, there is a bonding ritual, not unlike what humans might call communion of minds. It allows for the sharing of certain defenses. Alex raised an eyebrow. You want to get inside my head? I want to show you mine, she corrected, her fingers tracing patterns on his palm that sent shivers up his arm, and in doing so, create a link that would make it difficult for others to influence either of us. The implication was clear. This was more than a security measure. Among her people, this was intimacy of the highest order. Is this normal between your people? He asked, his voice rough. It is reserved for those who share deep trust, she said, her gaze unwavering. Or deeper feelings. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibilities. Alex found himself leaning closer, drawn by something beyond physical attraction. Show me, he whispered. Ilasa placed her palms against his temples, her touch feather-light. Close your eyes. Breathe with me. As their breaths synchronized, Alex felt a strange sensation, like standing at the edge of a vast ocean at night, waves lapping at his feet. Then suddenly, he was immersed in warmth and light, surrounded by emotions and memories not his own. He saw glimpses of a world with twin moons hanging low in a lavender sky, felt the joy of minds connecting in harmony, experienced the terror of being torn from that connection during her capture. And beneath it all, he felt her growing feelings for him, wonder, gratitude, desire, unfurling like exotic blossoms. Without conscious thought, Alex opened himself in return, letting her see his loneliness on this frontier world, his disillusionment with human society after the colonial wars, his unexpected hope since finding her. Their physical bodies moved together as naturally as their minds, lips meeting, hands exploring with reverent curiosity. The boundary between species seemed to dissolve as they discovered each other in ways both alien and achingly familiar. Later, as they lay entwined in the morning light, Ilasa traced patterns on his chest. Your kind feels so deeply, she murmured. It radiates from you like heat from a star. Alex smiled, kissing her forehead. Is that unusual? Most species evolve to control such intensity, she explained. They find it dangerous. And what do you find it? Her amber eyes met his. Magnificent. The moment was shattered by a sharp beeping from Alex's security system. He bolted upright, reaching for the display panel beside the bed. Someone's approaching, he said, scanning the readout. 2 vehicles coming fast from the direction of the trading post. Ilasa's face drained of color. They've found me. Alex was already moving, grabbing clothes and his pulse rifle from the wall mount. How? The collar? It must have activated a tracking function when we... She gestured between them, looking stricken. Our connection might have triggered it. No time for regrets, Alex said firmly, handing her clothes. We need to move. Now. As they hurriedly dressed, Alex's mind raced through options. They couldn't outrun vehicles in the forest, and his cabin wasn't defensible against a determined attack. The old mining tunnels, he decided. They run under half this region. If we can reach them before those vehicles arrive... Elissa nodded, her earlier vulnerability replaced by determination. Lead the way. As they slipped out the back door into the forest, Alex knew with absolute certainty that his life as a solitary lumberjack was over. What had begun as an impulsive rescue at a frontier market had become something he would fight to protect, even against an interstellar power. The mining tunnels were cold and damp, a stark contrast to the warmth of Alex's cabin. Illuminated only by the emergency light from Alex's multi-tool, the ancient passages stretched before them like the throat of some massive beast. These tunnels were abandoned 30 years ago, Alex explained, his voice echoing slightly as they moved deeper underground. The company found better deposits elsewhere and just left everything behind. Elissa stayed close behind him, her footsteps nearly silent compared to his heavier tread. Your species has a curious relationship with resources, she observed. You extract, abandon, and move on. Not our finest trait, Alex admitted, pausing at a junction to check his bearings. But it works in our favor today. They had barely made it into the forest when they'd heard the whine of approaching engines. Alex had led them to a concealed entrance, a maintenance shaft half hidden by vegetation, just as the first vehicle crested the hill toward his cabin. Now, several hundred meters below ground, they moved through the labyrinthine passages with purpose, Alex relying on his memory from occasional exploration of the tunnels during his 3 years on this frontier world. We need to put distance between us and them, he said, choosing the left passage. There's an old processing facility about 2 kilometers from here. We can regroup there, figure out our next move. As they walked, Elissa's collar emitted an occasional soft beep that set Alex's teeth on edge. Each sound seemed to echo through the tunnels, announcing their presence to potential pursuers. Can we disable that thing? He asked, gesturing to the collar. Elissa touched it gingerly. Not without specialized tools. The Dravari are thorough in their subjugation technology. The Dravari, Alex repeated. You're certain it was them who took you? I am now, she said grimly. During our connection, something happened. The collar activated, yes, but it also reset briefly. In that moment, I felt something stored within it. Data, memories, plans. Alex stopped walking, turning to face her. What kind of plans? Military coordinates, fleet movements. Her amber eyes reflected the blue-white light of his tool. The Dravari are planning something significant against human colonies in this sector. I believe they placed this information in my collar deliberately. Why would they do that? Insurance, she said simply. If I were captured by human forces, the collar would be examined, the data discovered. It would appear that the Lumidari were spying on human defenses. Alex let out a low whistle, framing your people to disrupt the alliance negotiations. Clever bastards. Indeed. And now they hunt me not just to prevent my return to my father, but to recover this evidence of their duplicity. A distant sound, metal against stone, echoed through the tunnel behind them. Alex extinguished his light immediately, plunging them into complete darkness. They're in the tunnels, he whispered, reaching for Elissa in the blackness. Her hand found his, squeezing gently. I can sense them, she murmured, her voice barely audible. 3 minds, focused, determined. They know these passages. Impossible, Alex hissed. These tunnels aren't on any public maps. Then you have been betrayed, Elissa said simply. Someone provided them with information. Alex's mind raced. Who even knew he explored these tunnels? He'd mentioned it to a few traders, perhaps the barkeeper in the settlement. We need to move, he decided, reigniting his light at the lowest setting, quickly and quietly. They proceeded at a faster pace, Alex leading them through increasingly narrow passages. The distant sounds of pursuit grew fainter, but Elissa's expression remained tense. They're splitting up, she warned, trying to cut us off. Alex cursed under his breath. We're still a kilometer from the processing facility. We need somewhere to hide, regroup. As if in answer to his concerns, the passage widened into what appeared to be an old break room. Mining equipment lay scattered about, covered in decades of dust. A security door, partially ajar, led to what looked like a small control center. In here, Alex said, pulling Elissa toward the control room. Once inside, he pushed the heavy door nearly closed. leaving just a sliver of space to observe the outer room. The control center was cramped but defensible, with only one entrance. Ancient computer terminals lined one wall, their screens dark and dead. A small emergency generator sat in the corner, its power cell likely drained decades ago. "What now?" Elasa asked, her voice tight with tension. "Now we wait," Alex replied, checking the charge on his pulse rifle. "Let them pass by, then make our way to the processing facility. It has communication equipment. Old, but I might be able to get it working. Send a message to the settlement." Elasa moved closer to him in the darkness, her body warm against his side. "And if they find us before then?" Alex gave her a grim smile she probably couldn't see. "Then they'll learn why humans have a reputation for being dangerous." They sat in silence for several minutes, listening intently for any sound of pursuit. The collar around Elasa's neck continued its occasional soft beeping, each sound making Alex wince. "I've been thinking about that collar," he finally whispered. "If it contains Dravari military plans, we need to preserve that data." "Agreed," Elasa said. "But how? We cannot remove it without risking its self-destruct mechanism." Alex's eyes had adjusted to the darkness, and he could make out the faint outline of her face. "What if we don't need to remove it? What if you could, I don't know, copy the data somehow? With your abilities?" Elasa was silent for a long moment. "It might be possible," she finally said. "During the reset, I glimpsed the information. If I could trigger another reset, how would we do that?" Her hand found his in the darkness. "The same way we did before. Our connection, it created a surge of bioelectric energy that temporarily disrupted the collar's systems." Alex felt heat rise to his face as he understood her meaning. "You mean we should?" "Yes," she said simply. "Our minds and bodies joined as one." Despite the danger of their situation, Alex felt a stirring of desire. Their earlier connection had been unlike anything he'd experienced. Not just physically, but mentally, a joining that transcended species. "Here, now," he asked, his voice rough. "The danger heightens sensory input," she explained, her fingers tracing patterns on his palm. "It would create a stronger surge, potentially giving me more time to access the data." Alex glanced toward the partially open door. "They could find us at any moment." "Then we should be quick," Elasa whispered, her lips finding his in the darkness. Their connection this time was more urgent, more primal. As their bodies moved together in the shadows, Alex felt the now familiar sensation of her mind touching his. But this time, there was a new purpose to her mental presence, a searching, reaching quality as she simultaneously joined with him and probed the collar's electronic systems. The collar beeped more rapidly, then emitted a high-pitched whine. Elasa gasped, her body arching against his as her mind delved deeper into the device's hidden data. "I see it," she whispered against his ear. "Coordinates, fleet movements, attack plans. It's all here." Alex held her tightly as she trembled, her mind working at speeds he could barely comprehend. Then suddenly, the collar went silent, its lights blinking out momentarily before resuming their normal pattern. "Did you get it?" Alex asked, breathing heavily. Elasa nodded, her forehead pressed against his. "Yes, all of it. The Dravari plan to attack 3 human colony worlds within the month using the disruption of the failed alliance negotiations as cover." "We need to warn them," Alex said, his tactical mind already shifting to their next move. A sound from the outer room froze them both. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, entering the break area. "Someone's here," Elasa breathed, barely audible. Alex reached for his pulse rifle, positioning himself between Elasa and the door. Whatever happened next, he was determined that she would survive to deliver her warning. The future of human colonies, and perhaps the Alliance itself, depended on it. Alex's mind raced as the footsteps drew closer. The control room offered only one entrance, a tactical nightmare for escape, but perfect for an ambush. He glanced around the cramped space, quickly formulating a plan. "Can you sense anything about them?" he whispered to Elasa, his lips barely moving. She closed her eyes, concentrating. One mind, cold, disciplined, military training. Her eyes snapped open. "Dravari elite forces. They're called shadow hunters. Alex had heard rumors about Dravari Special Forces, ruthless operatives trained from birth for tracking and elimination. That this one had found them so quickly was concerning. "I need you to do something," Alex murmured, quickly adjusting his position. "Can you project an emotion? Make him feel like we've moved on?" Elisa's brow furrowed. "The collar limits my range, but at this distance, perhaps. What do you have in mind?" "Make him think we went deeper into the tunnels. When he passes the door, I'll take him from behind." She nodded, positioning herself against the far wall as Alex crouched beside the partially open door, pulse rifle ready but set to stun. They needed information more than they needed a corpse. "Ready?" he mouthed. Elisa closed her eyes, her face a mask of concentration. Alex felt a strange ripple in the air, not quite sound, not quite sensation, as she projected her influence beyond the door. The footsteps paused, then resumed, more purposeful now, heading toward the passage that led deeper into the mine. Alex held his breath as a shadow passed the doorway, a tall, lithe figure in matte black armor, moving with predatory grace. As the Dravari passed, Alex counted to 3, then burst through the door, slamming the butt of his rifle into the back of the alien's helmet. The impact staggered the Shadow Hunter, but didn't drop him. The alien spun with unnatural speed, a vibroblade materializing in his hand. "Human!" the Dravari hissed, his voice modulated through his helmet. "Primitive. Predictable." Alex dodged the first slash, countering with a low sweep that the Dravari easily jumped over. Years of felling trees had given Alex strength, but the Shadow Hunter moved like liquid mercury. "Elisa, stay back!" Alex shouted as he parried another strike with the barrel of his rifle. The Dravari's helmet turned slightly. "The Lumidari telepath, my primary objective." Alex used the momentary distraction to land a solid punch to the alien's midsection, but the armor absorbed most of the impact. The Shadow Hunter countered with a vicious kick that sent Alex sprawling. "Your species relies too much on brute force," the Dravari said, advancing on Alex. "It makes you inefficient." As the alien raised his blade for a killing stroke, his body suddenly went rigid. Behind him, Elisa stood with her hands outstretched, her face contorted with effort. "I can't hold him long," she gasped. "The collar." Alex didn't waste the opportunity. He launched himself forward, tackling the paralyzed Dravari to the ground. The alien's helmet struck the stone floor with a crack, and Alex used the moment to wrench the vibroblade from his grasp. "Neural disruptor cuffs in his belt pouch," Elisa called, her voice strained. Alex found the device, similar to standard restraints but designed to interrupt nerve signals, and snapped them onto the Dravari's wrists. As soon as they were activated, Elisa sagged against the wall, released from the mental struggle. "That was too close," Alex said, breathing heavily as he removed the alien's helmet. The Dravari's face was unsettlingly humanoid. Pale gray skin stretched over sharp features, with entirely black eyes that reflected the dim light like polished obsidian. His lipless mouth was fixed in a grimace of hatred. "You cannot escape," the Shadow Hunter said, his voice oddly melodic without the helmet's modulation. "The others will find you. The data will be recovered." "What data?" Alex asked, playing dumb. "We're just a lumberjack and his girlfriend lost in some tunnels." The Dravari's expression didn't change, but something like amusement flickered in those black eyes. Primitive deception, ineffective. Elisa approached cautiously, studying their captive. "Why frame my people? The Lumidari have no quarrel with the Dravari Imperium." "Strategic necessity," the alien replied flatly. "Humans expand too quickly. Their alliance with telepaths would make them problematic. So you kidnap an ambassador's daughter, plant false evidence, and hope to start a war between potential allies," Alex summarized. "Pretty elaborate plan." "Effective plan," the Shadow Hunter corrected. "Until you interfered." Alex checked the alien's equipment, finding a compact communicator and what appeared to be a tracking device keyed to Elisa's collar. He smashed both under his boot. "Not so effective now," he said with grim satisfaction. The Dravari's face remained impassive. "Others are coming. You have merely delayed the inevitable." Alex dragged the bound alien into the control room, securing him to a support beam with additional restraints from the Shadowhunter's own gear. "How many others?" he demanded. "Enough," the Dravari replied. Elasa placed a hand on Alex's arm. "He won't tell us voluntarily. His mind is compartmentalized. Military conditioning. Can you break through it?" She hesitated. "With the collar, no, but there might be another way." She knelt before the Dravari, her amber eyes meeting his black ones. "Your people underestimate humans. It's why you fear them." The alien's expression flickered, the first real emotion he'd shown. "We do not fear. We anticipate and neutralize threats." "Is that what they told you?" Elasa asked softly. "That humans are merely a threat to be neutralized? Not a species that survived their own violent tendencies to reach the stars? Not a people who, despite their primitive emotions, built an interstellar civilization in a fraction of the time it took your Imperium?" The Dravari's eyes narrowed. "Irrelevant." "Is it?" Elasa pressed. "Your leaders fear human potential, their adaptability, their unpredictability." She glanced at Alex with something like pride. Their capacity for both violence and compassion. Alex watched this exchange with fascination. Elasa wasn't using telepathy. She was using psychology, finding cracks in the Shadowhunter's conditioning through words alone. "Two more team," the Dravari suddenly said, his voice flat. 6 operatives total. They will converge on this position within 20 minutes. Alex and Elasa exchanged surprised glances. "Why tell us this?" Alex asked suspiciously. The alien's black eyes fixed on him. "Because it changes nothing. You cannot escape." But he paused, something like curiosity crossing his features. "I wish to observe how you attempted. Humans are unpredictable. It is a tactical variable we have not fully quantified." Alex couldn't help but laugh. "So you're helping us because we're an interesting science experiment?" "Negative. I am providing data that will not alter the outcome to observe your response." Elasa stood, a small smile playing on her lips. "Then you've already proven my point about why your leaders fear humans. They cannot be predicted or controlled." She turned to Alex. "We need to move. Now." As they gathered what useful equipment they could from the Shadowhunter, Alex felt a strange mix of pride and determination. The Dravari might see humans as an unpredictable variable, but he was about to show them just how dangerous that variable could be. "What about him?" Alex asked, nodding toward their captive. "Leave him," Elasa said. "The disruptor cuffs will hold for hours. By then, we'll either have escaped or—" She didn't need to finish the thought. Alex nodded, checking the charge on the Dravari's confiscated energy pistol. 6 against 2, he muttered. "Not great odds." Elasa's hand found his, squeezing gently. "I've observed that humans often perform best when the odds are against them." "Despite everything," Alex grinned. "Damn right we do." "This is insane," Alex muttered as he attached the tracking device to an old mining cart. "You know that, right?" Elasa watched him work, her amber eyes reflecting the dim light of his multi-tool. "Most effective human strategies appear to be, from what I've observed." Despite their dire situation, Alex couldn't help but smile. "Is that a compliment or an insult?" "An observation," she replied, but the corner of her mouth twitched upward. "Though I find I'm developing an appreciation for human improvisation." They had moved quickly after leaving the captured Shadowhunter, gathering what they needed from his equipment. The tracking device linked to Elasa's collar was their most valuable find, a small disc that pulsed with a faint blue light. Alex finished securing it to the cart and stepped back. "This should work. The signal will move deeper into the mines, drawing them away from us." He glanced at the tunnel junction ahead. "Meanwhile, we double back toward the surface." "Through territory they've already searched," Elasa nodded. "Logical." "Let's just hope they're as logical as you are." Alex gave the cart a push, sending it rolling down the sloping track into the darkness. The wheels, though rusted, still functioned well enough to carry it deep into the mine. They waited until the cart disappeared around a bend, then moved in the opposite direction, keeping close to the wall. Alex had extinguished his light, relying on Elasa's superior night vision to guide them. "Can you sense any of them nearby?" he whispered as they approached a major junction. Elasa closed her eyes, concentrating. 2 mines, approximately 200 meters ahead. moving away from us, following the tracker. Good, Alex breathed. The others? Too distant to sense clearly through the collar's dampening effect. They proceeded cautiously, Alex's hand never straying far from the confiscated Dravari energy pistol. The tunnels seemed to close in around them, the darkness almost tangible. Wait, Elisa suddenly hissed, her hand gripping his arm. Something's wrong. Alex froze. What is it? The minds I sensed. They've stopped moving. They're suspicious. A cold dread settled in Alex's stomach. They're not buying it. Not entirely. They're debating whether to continue following the tracker or return to search this area again. Alex quickly assessed their options. They were at a four-way junction with passages leading in all directions. The route back toward the surface was still their best bet. But if the Dravari doubled back, we need a distraction, he decided. Something bigger than the tracker. Alasa's eyes widened slightly. The emergency generator in the control room. If we could activate it, it would draw power from the main grid, triggering alerts throughout the system, Alex finished. But we'd need to go back, and our friend is still there. Not necessarily back to that control room, Alasa said. These mining operations typically had multiple emergency systems. There should be another generator station nearby. Alex stared at her. How do you know that? A small, almost mischievous smile crossed her face. While you were examining the Shadow Hunter's equipment, I accessed some of his knowledge through our physical contact. Dravari mines are compartmentalized, but their tactical information includes structural details of this facility. That's impressive, Alex said, genuinely amazed, and a little terrifying. My people consider it basic courtesy to announce such intrusions, she admitted, but I felt the circumstances warranted directness. Alex chuckled softly. Remind me never to play poker with you. They found the auxiliary generator station exactly where Elisa had indicated, a small alcove off the main tunnel, housing equipment similar to what they'd seen in the control room. This one still has power cells, Alex observed, examining the ancient machinery. They're degraded, but might hold enough charge for a startup sequence. Will that be sufficient to create the distraction we need? Alex nodded. When these old systems activate after decades of dormancy, they trigger all kinds of automated protocols. Emergency lights, ventilation fans, communication attempts. It'll light up their sensors like a festival. He worked quickly, connecting bypass circuits and rerouting power from the cells to the main startup mechanism. It was delicate work, especially in near darkness, but years of maintaining his own equipment on the frontier had given him skilled hands. Almost got it, he murmured. When this activates, we'll have about 30 seconds before the systems come online. We need to be moving by then. Elisa placed her hand on his shoulder. Alex, boy, before we do this, I need to tell you something. He paused, looking up at her. In the faint glow of the equipment, her pale green skin seemed to shimmer. If we don't survive this, she said softly, I want you to know that what has grown between us, it is rare, even among my people. The connection we share, it transcends the physical. Alex stood, taking her hands in his. We're going to survive this, Elisa. I promise you. You cannot know that, she said, her voice gentle but firm. Humans always believe they can overcome any odds through sheer determination. It is admirable, but... He silenced her with a kiss, pouring all his emotions into the connection. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily. That determination is what's going to get us through this, he said, his voice rough with emotion. That, and whatever this is between us. Something shifted in Elisa's expression. A new understanding, perhaps even a new hope. My people have a saying, 2 minds join, create possibilities neither could imagine alone. I like that, Alex smiled. Now let's show these Dravari bastards what human determination and luminary wisdom can do together. With a final adjustment, Alex activated the generator's startup sequence. Immediately, ancient machinery began to hum, the sound growing louder as dormant systems awakened. Time to move, he said, taking Elisa's hand. They sprinted down the passage toward the surface access tunnel, just as emergency lights began flickering to life behind them. The sudden illumination, after so long in darkness, was almost blinding. It's working, Elisa called as they ran. I can sense confusion in the nearest mines. They're changing direction, heading toward the generator. They reached a maintenance shaft that Alex recognized, one of several that led to the surface. Unlike the main entrance they'd used earlier, this one emerged nearly a kilometer from his cabin. "Up here," he said, pointing to the rusted ladder that disappeared into the darkness above. "It's a straight climb, about 100 meters. Elasa eyed the ancient rungs dubiously. "Will it hold our weight?" "Only one way to find out," Alex replied, testing the first few rungs. They creaked but held firm. "I'll go first. If anything breaks, at least I can catch you." The climb was arduous, the metal rungs slick with moisture and age. Several times a rung broke under Alex's weight, forcing him to scramble for the next hold. Below him, Elasa followed silently, her movements graceful despite the difficult ascent. As they neared the top, Alex could see faint natural light filtering down from above, and the exit was still open. Hope surged through him. "We're almost there," he called down. "Just a few more." A violent tremor shook the shaft, nearly dislodging them both from the ladder. "What was that?" Elasa gasped. Another tremor, stronger this time, sent vibrations through the entire structure. The generator must have triggered something in the old mining systems, Alex realized aloud. Maybe pressure buildup in the sealed sections, or... A third tremor cut him off, accompanied by the distant sound of collapsing rock. "The tunnels are becoming unstable," Elasa said urgently. "We need to hurry." They climbed faster, ignoring the protesting metal and their own exhaustion. When Alex finally reached the top, he pushed against the rusted access hatch with all his strength. For a terrifying moment, it refused to budge, then suddenly gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Fresh air and sunlight poured into the shaft. Alex hauled himself out, then reached back to help Elasa. As she emerged, another violent tremor shook the ground beneath them. "Run!" Alex shouted, pulling her away from the shaft. They sprinted through the forest as the ground continued to shake. Behind them, the maintenance shaft collapsed with a thunderous roar, sending up a plume of dust and debris. When they finally stopped, both gasping for breath, Alex turned to survey the damage. A large section of forest floor had subsided, creating a shallow depression where the tunnels had collapsed. "Do you think the Dravari..." Elasa left the question unfinished. "I don't know," Alex admitted, "but if any survived, they'll be trapped down there for a while." Elasa closed her eyes, concentrating. "I sense nothing nearby. Either they're beyond my range or..." "Let's not celebrate yet," Alex cautioned. "We still need to get that collar off you and contact your people with the information you recovered." Elasa nodded, touching the metal band at her neck. "The settlement you mentioned, could they have the technology we need?" "Maybe," Alex said. "But first we need to get somewhere safe and regroup. My cabin's compromised, but I have a fallback location, a hunting blind about 5 kilometers from here." As they set off through the forest, Alex couldn't help but marvel at how drastically his life had changed in just a few days. From solitary lumberjack to fugitive, all because he decided to save what he thought was a goblin slave from a shady alien merchant. Looking at Elasa now, determined, brilliant, and somehow even more beautiful, covered in tunnel dust, he couldn't bring himself to regret a single moment of it. Alex's hunting blind was little more than a reinforced shed nestled among the tallest trees on a ridge overlooking the valley. Built from the same timber he harvested, it blended seamlessly with the forest. Inside, basic supplies waited: preserved food, water, medical kit, and a small portable communication unit, not powerful enough to reach off-world, but sufficient to monitor local channels. "Not exactly luxury accommodations," Alex apologized as they entered the cramped space, "but it's off the grid and secure." Elasa sank onto the single cot, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "It's perfect," she said sincerely. "Your foresight is impressive." "Colonial wars taught me to always have a fallback position," he explained, checking the comm unit. "Never know when you might need to disappear for a while." As the unit powered up, it immediately began picking up unusual chatter from the settlement. Alex adjusted the frequency, listening intently. "Something's happening," he said. The settlement's security grid detected an unscheduled landing at the outskirts. Elasa sat up straighter. "Dravari reinforcements?" "No," Alex frowned, adjusting the signal. "They're describing it as a diplomatic vessel. Small, elegant design, requesting identification, but getting no response." Elasa's eyes widened. Lumberjack, she breathed. It must be. Our ships are designed to communicate only on secure channels. Your people found you? How? She touched the collar, a look of wonder crossing her face. When I accessed the data within the collar, it must have triggered an emergency protocol, one the Dravari didn't know about or couldn't disable, a distress beacon. Alex moved to the blind small window, scanning the sky. I don't see anything. They would land away from population centers, Elasa explained. Luminary protocols for hostile territory. The comm unit crackled with new information. The settlement's militia was mobilizing to investigate the landing site, approximately 15 kilometers east of their position. We need to reach that ship before the militia or any surviving Dravari, Alex decided, but we can't just walk into the open. If there are any shadow hunters left. There's another option, Elasa said, her voice taking on a new certainty. Now that I know my people are here, I might be able to reach them telepathically, even through the collar's dampening effect. Is that safe? Alex asked, concern evident in his voice. No, she admitted with a small smile. But neither is anything else we've done since meeting. She settled into a cross-legged position on the cot, closing her eyes. I'll need to concentrate deeply. It will leave me vulnerable. Alex nodded, checking the energy pistol they'd taken from the shadow hunter. I'll keep watch. As Elasa slipped into a meditative state, Alex positioned himself by the window, vigilant for any sign of threat. The forest was quiet, too quiet perhaps, but he couldn't tell if that was due to natural caution after the mine collapse or something more sinister. Minutes stretched into an hour. Elasa remained motionless, her breathing shallow, occasionally wincing as though in pain. Alex fought the urge to interrupt her, knowing this might be their only chance. Suddenly, the collar around her neck emitted a high-pitched whine, its lights flashing erratically. Elasa gasped, her eyes flying open. They heard me, she said, her voice strained. They're coming. But she clutched at the collar as it grew hot against her skin. The collar's security protocols are activating. It's detected the communication attempt. Alex was at her side instantly. What does that mean? It's designed to prevent exactly what I just did, she explained through gritted teeth. If we don't deactivate it soon. She didn't need to finish. The implication was clear. The collar could harm or even kill her. The settlement, Alex decided. There's an engineer there, Holt, former military. He might know how to disable it. They moved quickly, gathering what supplies they could carry. As they prepared to leave, Elasa suddenly froze, her head tilting as though listening to a distant sound. What is it? Alex asked. A presence, she whispered. Familiar. My father's chief security officer. He's searching telepathically. Her face lit up. And he's close. Much closer than the landing site. Before Alex could respond, the comm unit crackled with urgent alerts. Multiple unidentified flying objects had been detected converging on the settlement. Dravari reinforcements, almost certainly. We're out of time, Alex said grimly. We need to move now. They slipped from the hunting blind into the gathering dusk. Alex led them along game trails he knew well, moving as quickly as stealth allowed. The collar continued its ominous whine, growing louder as they progressed. Can you still sense your people? Alex asked as they paused to catch their breath. Elisa nodded, though her face was drawn with pain. They're moving toward us. 3 operatives, heavily armed. They sense my distress. And the Dravari? I can't tell, she admitted. The collar is making it difficult to focus. They continued their careful advance, the forest growing darker around them. Alex's frontier-honed senses detected nothing unusual, but he remained tense, expecting an ambush at any moment. When they reached the edge of a small clearing, Elasa suddenly grabbed his arm. There, she whispered, pointing to the far side where shadows seemed to move independently of the wind. Alex raised the energy pistol, but Elasa placed her hand over his. No, she said, it's them. My people. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, tall, graceful beings with the same pale green skin as Elasa, but clad in form-fitting armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their movements were fluid, almost predatory. The leader stepped forward, his amber eyes, so similar to Elasa's, scanning them both before settling on the collar. He spoke in a melodic language that Alex couldn't understand. Ilasa responded in the same tongue, her voice urgent. The leader nodded, then approached, producing a small device from his armor. "He can deactivate the collar," she explained to Alex, "but we must hurry. The Dravari reinforcements are searching for the beacon signal." The Lumidari worked quickly, the device emitting pulses of light that interfaced with the collar systems. After several tense moments, there was a soft click, and the collar fell away. Ilasa gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "I can feel everything," she whispered, her eyes wide with relief and renewed power. "The forest, the settlement, the ships approaching." She turned to Alex, her expression suddenly alarmed. "The Dravari know we're here. They're coming now." As if summoned by her words, the distinctive whine of Dravari engines cut through the night air. A sleek predatory craft appeared above the tree line, the searchlights cutting through the darkness. The Lumidari leader barked orders, and his companions deployed what looked like small, silver discs around the clearing. Force field generators, Alex realized, as shimmering energy barriers sprang to life. "We must reach our vessel," the leader said in accented standard, addressing Alex directly for the first time. "You have protected the daughter of our ambassador. The Lumidari conclave owes you a debt." "The data," Alex reminded Ilasa. "Tell him about the attack plans." Ilasa quickly relayed the information she'd extracted from the collar. The leader's expression hardened, and he spoke rapidly into a communication device on his wrist. "Our ship is 1 kilometer east," he informed them. "We must move quickly. The barriers will not hold long against Dravari weapons." As they prepared to leave the clearing, Ilasa turned to Alex, her eyes filled with conflicting emotions. "Come with us," she said softly. "My father will ensure your safety." Alex hesitated, looking around at the forest that had been his home and refuge. "And then what?" he asked. "I'm just a lumberjack, Ilasa." She took his hands in hers. "You are far more than that, Alex Hudson. You saved me when no one else would. You fought against impossible odds. You showed courage and compassion that would honor any Lumidari." The Lumidari leader cleared his throat. "The human would be welcome among us," he said, surprising them both. "Those who aid the conclave in times of need are considered allies. And we value allies with unpredictable strategies." A smile tugged at Alex's lips. "Unpredictable, huh?" The barrier at the far end of the clearing flared as Dravari weapons fire struck it. The leader gestured urgently. "We must go. Now." As they raced through the forest toward the hidden Lumidari vessel, Alex found himself running not away from his old life, but towards something new. Something he hadn't realized he'd been missing until a green-skinned goblin slave had entered his world. The Lumidari ship was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Organic curves and gleaming surfaces that seemed to shift colors in the moonlight. It hummed with power as they approached, a ramp extending silently to welcome them. Inside the vessel was a marvel of technology and artistry combined. As they strapped into acceleration couches, Alex found Ilasa's hand seeking his. "Are you certain?" she asked quietly. "Leaving your world behind?" Alex looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the beautiful alien he'd rescued from a sack, but the woman who had changed everything. The woman who had shown him that the universe was larger and more wondrous than his solitary existence had allowed him to see. "My world," he said, squeezing her hand, "is wherever you are now." The ship rose silently into the night sky, easily evading the pursuing Dravari vessels. As they broke atmosphere, the stars spread out before them like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Alex Hudson, no longer just a lumberjack, gazed at the infinite possibilities ahead and smiled. Sometimes the most unexpected purchases turned out to be the most valuable of all.